Okay. Likkutei Torah, Drushim for Sukkot. Drushim for Sukkot, page Pei, first column, A's Bays. Yeah, we'll just go quickly. The first few lines we learned already. Anyway, the Rabbi is explaining there's Nisuch HaMayim, there's Nisuch HaYayin. Nisuch HaMayim is a level of Kohen.
You started here, you're here. Okay.
Nisuch HaMayim is a level of Kohanim. Leviim is a level of Bina. Kohanim are Chochma. Kohanim are higher than Bina. Kohanim are higher than Leviim. Chochma is higher than Bina. Therefore, Nisuch HaMayim is higher than Nisuch HaYayim. That's what we learned so far.
Right.
So now he says in Torah Shebeksav, Torah Shebal Peh. Okay, these first few lines we learned. There's Torah Shebeksav and Torah Shebal Peh. Torah Shebeksav is basically the letters in the formation, like it says, all the Torah is the names of Hashem. Therefore, every letter is Menuyas Balad of Yas. You can't have too many letters. Extra letters no good in the Torah. One less letter is no good. Every letter has to be the exact thing. If they touch each other, it's no good. Okay, this is what we're up to now. Bina, Ecstasy is saying Bechinas Bina. Letters are the level of Bina. Why? Like we see. When Seichel comes into understanding, you have a concept, you understand it. How do you understand it? In letters. Whether it's letters of thought or letters of speech, but it's still letters that form and limit the word. Chochma is higher than the level of Seichel Chochma. You don't understand. So there's no letters yet in Chochma. That's why Torah Shebeksav is the level of Bina. And Bina is called Sefer Torah. It's interesting. Torah Shebeksav is letters, that's the level of Bina. Torah Shebal Peh is Chochma. So Torah Shebal Peh is even higher than Torah Shebeksav, according to what he's saying here. Like it's V'hainu, B'chinas Eis, is a Machshava. V'af agav do'iraisim in Chochma nafkes. Even though Torah comes from Chochma, here we're saying it's Bina. He says the Gaba Maitzel Bechinas Chochma. And from Hashem's perspective, it's a level of Chochma. But from our perspective, Gabi Nevraim, it's a level of Bina. Therefore, Torah Shebal Peh is a level of Chochma, and over there, Ein Eis is Iko Kol Kach. In Torah Shebal Peh, like we said, halachically, there's no letters in Torah. You don't have to have exact letters in Gemara and Shulchan Aruch and things like that. In Torah Shebal Peh, the main thing is understanding. He says, El Asech of Askali Yiksam is Galit B'Teichaisis. Lochein Ein Medaktim B'Yisiseh Kol Kach. Okay? Yeah, but there's a lot of many halachas are derived from a certain expression or language in the Gemara. And the Rambam, they learn out many halachas from the Rambam, what he says in a word that he uses. But nevertheless, it's not as explicit and as important as the letters of Torah Shebeksav. Like it says, the Gemara says, my time with Rabbi Meir. What's the reason of Rabbi Meir? The Gemara wants to understand. Torah Shebal Peh is understanding. That's the level of Chachma Kaneda. Okay, so he says like this. Ubezeh Yuva now will understand. Inyan anal shenisach yayin ksiv b'Torah. Yayin again is the level of Bina. Bina is a level of letters, which is Torah Shebeksav. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe asked the question at the beginning of the Maamar. Why isn't Simcha's Beis HaShe'eva explicitly mentioned in Torah? It's halacha Moshe Messina. Why don't it doesn't say explicitly in Torah? So he says like this: Torah is letters. Letters is the level of Bina. Nisuch HaMayim is the level of Chochma. So therefore, it's not mentioned explicitly in Torah because it's higher than Torah. It's Ecstasy of Chochma versus Bina, which is the letters of Torah.
So by the way, we have to understand.
Yes.
To get the mitzvah.
If you read Torah Shebal Peh, yeah, and you don't understand what you're saying, you're not getting a mitzvah of learning Torah. Somebody says Torah Shebeksav, like you take a Chumash or a Tilim, and you read it, and you don't know what in the world you're saying, you still get a mitzvah of learning Torah. Because Torah Shebiksav is not a level of understanding so much. Even though here he says it's Bina, versus the Torah Shebal Peh, which is Chochmah. So from that thing, it doesn't make sense. Chochmah, you don't understand. Bina, you do understand. But bro, that's what he's saying here.
How come we don't make a bracha on mayim? We make a bracha on yain, but not mayim.
Because mayim is not a food unless if you're thirsty.
Much.
Right. Why Nisach HaYayin is explicitly mentioned in Chumash, but Nisach HaMayim le'nichta b'Torah kalachon meshim misinai. Why? Yayin is a level of Bina, which is Torah Shebiksav. So therefore, Nisach HaYayin, which is the level of letters, which is Torah Shebiksav, so it says in Torah Shebiksav. V'zeu pirush yeinu shel Torah, like I'll explain later. Therefore it's able to be written because it's the same idea. The level of Bina, the level of letters. Is the level of Chochmah, because over there, over there it's the level of Bina, and this is higher than Bina. Okay, you got to skip this parenthesis, which goes about 20 lines. Now we can understand what the Gemara says on the pasuk, Tev in the Medrash. But Tevim they dachol miyayin. Okay, it says your friends, your friends are better than wine. So the Gemara learns, the Medrash and the Gemara says it also. Arevim olay divrei seifrim yesim miyenu shel Torah. In other words, like this, the pasuk says your friends are better than wine. So the Gemara says, what are the friends and what is wine? So the Medrash says, friends refer to the Chachamim, the friends, so to speak, that learn. And wine refers to Torah Shebal Peh, Torah Shebiksav. So he says, the Gemara learns out that the Chachamim's words are sweeter, Arevim alei, sweeter. Hashem says the Chachamim's words are sweeter to me more than the Chumash, more than Torah Shebiksav. Why? He says, what does Sofrim mean? And Yeinu Shel Torah. That the Sofrim are better than, sweeter than Yeinu Shel Torah. Well, Inyan, he says like this. The name of Sefer Yitzira, it says in Sefer Yitzira, Dvarim Bara Kodesh Baruch Hu. As the kids say this thing in the Bar Mitzvah Maamar. You know, the kids say this Bar Mitzvah Maamar. It's a very hard Maamar. The kids say the word, they don't know what the heck they're talking about because even the adults don't know what it means over there. It says like this: Hashem created the world. It says in Sefer Yitzira that Hashem created the world with three things: Sofer, Sefer, and Sipur. What is Sofer? That's the level of Chochmah that comes into Sefer, which is Bina, which is Machshava. The Sipur is the level of Dibur, speech, talking, Sipur. Basically, it says like this: when the Sefer Yitzira says Hashem created the world with Sefer, and Sipur. Sefer, he says, is Torah Shebiksav, because it's what the Sefer writes the letters. Sefer is a level of Bina, and then Sipur is a level of speech. So Hashem created the world with Machshava, Dibur, and speech. And I'm sorry. What you would call it? Chachma, Bina, and Dibur. Okay, skip the 5 lines. That's what it says, Divrei Seifrim. Seifrim is Sefer. Singular for Sefer. So Hashem created the world with Sofer, Sefer, and Sipur. Sefer is Torah Shebiksav. Sofer. Chochma. V'shamu Torah Shebal Peh. And that's the source of Torah Shebal Peh, which he said is Chochma. V'nitzach hamayim is more precious than Yeinu Shel Torah, which is Torah Shebiksav, which is Sefer. That's called the level of Bina. The Nitzach Hayayin is a level of Chochmah, which is a level of Sefer, which is much greater than the level of Sefer. It's so interesting the way Chassidus takes everything and turns it around. Ask any normal person in the street, what's greater, Torah Shebiksav or Torah Shebal Peh? Which one's from a higher level? Everybody's going to tell you Torah Shebiksav is higher than Torah Shebal Peh. Comes along Kabbalah and Chassidus and says, no. Torah Shebiksav is a level of Bina. Torah Shebal Peh is a level of Chochmah. Chochmah is greater than Bina. That's what the Gemara says. The Torah Shebal Peh, Divrei Seifrim, is more precious to Hashem and sweeter to Hashem than Torah Shebal Peh.
I thought the higher level is not to understand. Just do.
Yeah. Then there's a level which is even higher than that. You understand it, you don't understand. That's also an understanding. In other words, like this. People can understand something. Then the guy says, no, I don't understand it. Then there's a higher level of to know you don't understand. To understand it, you don't. A guy can go, I don't understand it. Yeah. But there's a higher thing, to understand that you don't understand it. That's a much higher level of not understanding.
That level. I know I don't
There's an expression Chassidus always, shh. There's an expression Chassidus always brings down. Tachlis hayediyah shalei nedoacha. The ultimate understanding is that we don't understand. Yeah? If you don't understand, shh. If you don't understand, why is it called understanding? Tachlis hayediyah, the ultimate level of understanding is that we don't understand. So it's not understanding.
I know, but the easiest thing...
The ultimate thing is that we understand that we don't understand.
Okay, but the easiest thing to say is I don't understand.
Yeah, of course it's a cop-out. Yeah.
But even the level of not understanding and doing is not Torah, that's doing mitzvahs.
You have to be mishtadel.
That's not called Torah.
You did it.
No, understanding is also in Torah. In other words,
I'm saying
when
not
let me explain something. When a person learns and they understand, shh, Doc, shh. A person learns, they understand something. That's not what really should be. After you understand it, then you need to realize it's Hashem's wisdom. How in the world could I understand it? I only understand it because Hashem lowered himself,
Right.
as Chazal say, "B'makom gedulosei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu," in the place of Hashem's greatness. There you say an vasanusa, his humility, like the Rebbe says in Tanya. That what does it mean? That in the place of Hashem's greatness, it said, well, where you see Hashem's greatness, you see his humility. That Hashem took infinite wisdom. Hashem's wisdom is infinite, by definition. Hashem took infinite wisdom, made it understandable, that we could understand it. Halachically, we understand it. It's not fake understanding. We understand it. And yet at the same time, we need to understand that we don't understand it. And the more you understand Torah, if you're learning it properly, the more you realize you don't understand it. In other words, when you learn more, the more you learn, the more you realize you know nothing.
That's right.
The more you realize you know nothing.
Yadua.
Because the ultimate understanding is to understand that we don't understand. Just to say that you said, just say I don't understand, it's a cop-out, I don't understand. But they're not understanding they don't understand. I told many times the story of Rabbi Eger, who was one of the most brilliant scholars, that the Jewish people had. He lived in the Mittler Rebbe's time. Rabbi Eger. He met the Mittler Rebbe a few times. Once for sure. Anyway, so they met. And Rabbi Kiva was a brilliant, brilliant scholar. Okay? And he had a lot of questions in learning that he didn't understand. One time he comes to a shtetl, and a bunch of simple Jews are learning a Gemara class. And the rabbi is teaching the Gemara class, and they're all sitting there, and they're all nodding their heads, and they understand it. And, they close the books, they go home. And they're happy, they had a nice Gemara class that they understood. So Rabbi Kiva started crying. He said, look at this. These simple Jews understand, and I don't begin to understand. But his not understanding was not a little bit. Who knows how much greater than their understanding. The ultimate understanding is that we don't understand Halukos. And the more you understand, the more you're supposed to realize, I don't understand Halukos. Otherwise you're not learning Torah properly. Therefore, the prerequisite of learning Torah is bittul. You're going into Torah to learn to understand simultaneously, not simultaneously, beforehand. That's why you say Noisen HaTorah. Before you learn, you have to say Bracha Noisen HaTorah. It's Hashem's Torah. If it's Hashem's Torah, how can we understand it? Or like the Rebbe says, in a Lokai Nitzor, we say, V'nafshi ka'afala kol tihiyah, psach libi b'ser asecha. So simply, it's two separate things. I should have bittul, my soul should be like dirt, period, open up my heart and Torah. The Rebbe says no. In order to have psach libi b'ser asecha, in order to have not only my mind, by the way, it doesn't say psach moichi or sichli, psach libi, that we should feel Torah. The prerequisite of that is the nafshi kafel okoti bittul, because otherwise you're not learning Torah. You're learning a subject in university called Talmud. There's nothing to do with Torah. You learn Torah, it has to be Hashem's Torah, Noisen HaTorah. So it's a much different aspect of approach of learning Torah. Okay. Like 15 lines in the bottom of the page. The level of Seif, which is Chacham Shamu Sheter Shabal Peh. And Nisach HaMayim, more than Yener Sheter, which is Ter Shabal that's called Sefer, which is the level of Bina. And Nisach HaYayim, which is the level of Chachma. Shavu Sefer, who Gavar made Nylan with Bina, which is the level of Sefer. So in other words, in simple language, Nisach HaMayim is Chachma, Nisach HaYayim is Bina, Chachma is higher than Bina. Bina is Chachma, Bina is Tereshib Iksav, letters. Tereshib Al Peh is Chachma, Chachma is higher than Bina, therefore you cannot say Nisach HaMayim in Chumash because it's higher than Torah, higher than letters of Torah.
When we say Mission Chesed Torah.
The what?
Mission Chesed Torah Bar Hashem Yerushalayim.
Yeah.
One is Torah, Bar Hashem is Torah Shabbat Peh.
If you say so.
Sion or Yerushalayim?
Sion.
So Torah is higher. In this passage, Torah is higher. Mission Chesed Torah.
No. I don't know if that goes like that. Maybe. And if then Yerushalayim is higher than Sion. Sion is only a mark. Sion means a marker.
So in this passage, Yerushalayim is higher than Sion?
The Rebbe used to answer a lot of times when people would ask for a bracha, the Rebbe would answer, Asker al Tzion, which simply means, I'll mention it at the previous Rebbe's oil. Tzion is like the graves are called Tzion. But there were times, the Rebbe answered somebody, Asker al Tzion, and then the person wrote in again, And the Rebbe answered, ask it od hapam alatzion. I'll mention it again at the oil, but he never went to the oil in between. He said, I'll mention it at the oil. Then he said, I'll mention it again at the oil, but in between those two answers, he never went to the oil.
I mentioned it like in the past,
I
right?
don't know. Ask it means I will mention it. You know, different...
So he did a kfitz over there, or he did it twice?
The Rebbe had a private secretary, his name was Ramesh Brodshtein. He was a real... He worked yet in the Friedrich Rebbe's time. He was a very lively Jew, but he was the Rebbe's, one of the Rebbe's private, that means private things went through him, basically. Him, Rabbi Chodakov, but they went through him, because he didn't have any children. But he used to go into the Rebbe for dictation. He tried everything possible to make the Rebbe laugh. Yeah, like he would walk you on that once with a tiny pencil, like this. So the Rebbe said to him in Yiddish, you don't have a bigger one? So he took out from his pocket, you know, those real big pencils, you know, just for a joke. So he said, he hung around the Rebbe so much that he thought he's learning the trade. You know, he's learning how to be a Rebbe. Then he said, and then the Rebbe would do something, I lost it. You know, it's a favorite joke. He didn't, he didn't think he's becoming a Rebbe, you know what I mean? But he said, very unpredictable. The Rebbe was predictably unpredictable. No, I'm just saying, you have different things that see and what it means, what it doesn't mean. Well, what do we know? We know nothing. Okay, so he says now like this. Even though Chochmah is higher than Bina, right? Nevertheless, they're called in Zayar, Chochmah Bina, Hem Treirei and Doleim Isparshin. They're two friends that are inseparable. It says Chochmah and Bina are two friends that are inseparable. That means, yes, Chochmah is higher than Bina, but they're, really connected. Vimkein, therefore, therefore, what do we have to do down here? Bind Chochmah and Bina, i.e., bind Torah Shebiksav with Torah Shebal Peh. And that's what it says. Shaft and Mayim B'Sosin. Mayim is the level of Chochmah. Should be B'Sosin, which is the level of Bina, and then we have the connection Yischabo Chochmah and Bina to be Treirei and Leim Isparshin. It says Shaft and Mayim B'Sosin. L'chayra, Mayim is not Simcha. Wine is Simcha. Yeah, so it said by Nitzach HaMayim, Ushaft Mayim B'Sosin. L'chayra, Mayim is Kabbalah soil. Wine is a level of Simcha. How do you draw water with Simcha? The answer is because you need to do both things together. And therefore the ultimate Simcha is with Nitzach HaMayim. Because Mayim and Chochmah Bina are two inseparable. One of the Alter Rebbe's greatest Talmidim, until he broke away, was the Rabbi Sheller. He was called Talmid HaGodol of the Alter Rebbe. He was he was known as the greatest Talmid of the Alter Rebbe. Mitzler Rebbe was much younger than him, but they were very good friends. They hung out a lot together. So one time, I forgot who it was, one of the colleagues of the Alter Rebbe saw Mitzler Rebbe and Rabbi Sheller walking in the street. So the guy said to the Rebbe, to the Alter Rebbe, Treirei and Leim Isparshin. They're two friends inseparable. So the Alter Rebbe said, Halavai. Because he turned away. Eventually, the Strashel left Alter Rebbe in the middle of it. So, no, it's Tom. He said the expression, these are two inseparable friends like Chochmah and Bina, but the Alter Rebbe said Halavai. But because they didn't end up. Okay, 2 lines in the end of the page. Because it doesn't make sense. How do you dance with water? It's the two opposites. Dancing Simcha is Yayin. Water is not Simcha. So why do we dance ultimate Simcha? Simcha is Beis HaShe'eva. Because the Avodah down here is to connect Chachma and Bina together. To connect Mayim and Yayin. In other words, the real Simcha of the Jew should be with Kabbalah Seil, not understanding. Because Mayim is a higher level than understanding, we said, right? Mayim. So the ultimate goal is the Simcha of the Jew is with Kabbalah Seil. What?
I think that answers the question because I was wondering what does Chachma have to do with Chag Simcha? I mean,
Because that's the level of Mayim. The ultimate level of Simcha, that's why the Rebbe explains. Mi shelo simcha beis hashem, no. Lo simcha l'miyav. Or the Gemara says, Ein simcha, because Elo is simcha beis hashem. And when it says Elo, it means, there is no other simcha. Okay? So, the ultimate simcha, there is no other simcha but simcha beis hashem. It's not the pshat simcha beis hashem was a greater simcha than others. Misha le'ra simcha beis hashem le'ra simcha miyamav. There is no other simcha. Doesn't say nobody ever saw great simcha. Le'ra simcha miyamav never saw simcha. That means the only simcha is ultimately simcha beis hashem.
that's because it's a level of Chachma.
That's because there's the unity of Chachma and Bina, which in Avedas Hashem means the person, because the truth is like this. Simcha basically by definition breaks barriers. Simcha peretz kedem. If you understand something, it's automatically limited because our brains are limited. So any understanding cannot break barriers because it's barriered, whatever. But when you have Kabbalah Seil, which breaks barriers, that's the ultimate Simcha. And that's Chachma. So the ultimate Simcha is when you break the barriers of understanding and you have Mayim. That's the ultimate level of Simcha.
We're calling Chachma not understanding, but it's really,
Chachma is not under Bina's
it's
understanding.
really the beginning of it.
Chachma is higher than understanding. You don't understand it yet. You get a brainstorm. The light bulb goes off in your brain.
Not understanding is when you're thinking about it.
Yeah, but you realize you don't understand it.
What Chachma means is the beginning of understanding.
It's not understanding. It's the prerequisite of understanding is Chachma. Bina's understanding.
Wow.